The greatest danger to our future is apathy, and that's a quote from Jawaharlal Nehru. Well, hello and welcome to the #1 youthful breakfast show ways, #what are you saying, where the conversations that matter the most are discussed on this table. And today's conversation is one for the books. In the wake of the heartbreaking loss of Cynthia Ogweze, we're reminded that negligence often stems from indifference. And today, we're asking the critical questions: are caretakers in Nigeria doing enough to prevent such tragedies? Of course, our show is going to take a different turn this morning, as we're not starting with our newspaper banter and review. We're going straight to the hot topic for today. So if you're just joining us, we need you to be part of this conversation. Our phone lines are open. Please call us on 07025007749 or 07014242420. And of course, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Official Upgrade TV. Like, share the link to as many people as possible, because they need to be part of the conversation this critical. All right, heading straight into it. A tragic story recently made headlines. A 30-year-old woman, Cynthia Chizomba Ogweze, lost her life after an overhead water tank collapsed through the ceiling of her apartment in Lekki while she was asleep. Her death has since raised important questions about property safety, construction oversight, and more importantly, the role of caretakers and property managers in Nigeria. Of course, today on the show, we dive into the heart of this issue with our compelling topic: are caretakers in Nigeria doing enough to maintain properties? And to help us unpack this, we are joined by a distinguished real estate professional, Ewenla Mustapha. He's the head of practice and CEO of Mustapha, Ewenla and Partners, a firm with multiple branches across Nigeria and international offices. And of course, he's here to join us today for our conversation. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. The pleasure is all ours.
Thank you for having me.
It's sad that we're having you on a day when we're discussing a tragic story. I just came across this news yesterday, and I felt a lot of things happened. And then today, let me just, before we start the conversation, let me give you an intro into how my morning went. I experienced firsthand what negligence could have caused. Yeah. But thankfully, it wasn't as tragic as, some people have experienced. Yeah. And it was our bus on the 3rd Mainland Bridge. The tire flew away while we were commuting. On motion, on that kind of busy road. And when we were on the other side of the road, the first person who was in the bus made mention to the other passengers there that it's like the man had been complaining before then, very casually, about his tires. And I think it's something I've noticed with many people, many drivers. I'm not even talking house now. You would note that there's a problem with whatever equipment that you're using, and then you still decide to test the 9 lives that you have and the other passengers. That's a near-death experience. I think you need to go to church and do a testimony. Yeah. My parents are going to kill goats by the time I get home. And then it's just a negligence culture that we have. Now, linking into the story of today, a water tank while she was asleep. A 30-year-old woman, I'm having a picture of somebody that's a 30-year-old woman, probably just climbing the peak of her career, was able to get a proper apartment on the island, which is a very treasurable area, and then all of a sudden just died. So firstly, my question is, what was your reaction when you heard this story? I'm sure you've come across
when I came across that story over the weekend, the first thing that came to my mind was, this could have been me, this could have been anybody. Because this innocent girl got the apartment innocently. Yeah. And the last thing you want to check when you get an apartment is to go and be checking
the water tank,
the integrity of the water tank. That's the last thing you want to check, even if you have done all your due diligence on the property itself. So it could have been me, it could have been anybody, but very unfortunately, our condolences to the family of that lady. It's very sad. I saw the picture, it was very gory, right in her sleep.
Right in her sleep.
So
she couldn't have even done anything.
She couldn't. So it's very helpless. It's like somebody who just dies from the sleep, and you cannot even fight, try and maneuver to escape that. So it's sad. So it takes us to how we got here in the first place.
Yeah. That leads me to the next question.
Yes.
Sorry to cut you short. Who then should be blamed for an incident like this? Because that's what's being controversial now. That's what's on everybody's lip. Yes. Are we going to blame the engineers, the caretakers, the landlord? Who exactly are we going to put to blame?
So there are so many people to be blamed. The engineer is one. Whoever constructed that overhead tank. The landlord himself needs to be called to book, and the property manager of that property needs to be called to book too. Because a lot of times in Nigeria, when this tragedy happens, nobody takes responsibility. And I mean, it's sad because somebody has to take responsibility when such thing happens. We have seen the news of the girl who passed on, but we haven't heard the second side of who and who has been arrested on this tragic incident. A few weeks ago, just last month, a building collapsed in Oriwe, very close to your office here. We've seen the news, 6 people died. What happened? We've not seen the fallout of whoever has been arrested. Very few meters away from your office here. So this just goes to show that we don't value lives in Nigeria, and that blame goes straight to the government. Every other time such incidents happen, there was last year we had about 2 incidents of building collapse. We had about 2 or 3 in Lagos. We had one in Abuja where people lost their lives. Nobody was arrested. Nobody was, sent to jail. Nobody was, prosecuted for that. So until our government stands up and starts to prosecute people who are directly responsible for these things, then we'll continue to see. I was on a TV station a few months ago when we had this recent building collapse in Abuja last year. And I told them, I'm not a prophet of doom, but if nothing drastic is done, we'll continue to see these cases. And after that, we've seen 2 or 3 cases happen. And the lady on the TV was like, oh, let's be positive. But if we're positive-minded and we're not taking actions, we'll continue to see it happen. So now, so it takes us to the entire value chain, the entire process of people involved in properties, the entire process of professionals involved. And sometimes you cannot even blame professionals. Some landlords are fond of doing things by themselves. You see a landlord, he will be the one that wants to be the engineer because he does not want to pay a qualified engineer. He wants to be the contractor, he wants to be the builder, he wants to be the architect. He will be the one to be doing, we call it direct labor. So and the resultant effect of that is when people rent such houses, when people live there, when people buy it, incidences happen and people die. So the government has to clamp down on quackery on the part of building owners, developers, quackery on the part of people who want to cut corners. What happened in the case of this lady, and I can tell you for free that there was no integrity test carried out on that scaffold when it was constructed. That scaffold, obviously, the quality of iron that was used was obviously very, very inferior. And over time, when you pump water into those tanks, it becomes heavier. And when it becomes heavy, the inferior scaffold you have used will give way to collapse. And so that was just an incident that it was a ticking time bomb that should have happened a long time ago. But very unfortunately, it happened and it killed somebody. So I think that our government needs to arrest somebody. Somebody needs to be arrested for that.
All right, thank you so much for the beginning of this conversation.
Yes, thank you.
Now, there are 2 questions on my head, so I'll ask one before the other. Before I go over to, the responsibilities of, caretakers and all of that, because again, I feel like for all the time we've spoken about caretakers and all, it feels like most of them don't even know what their job is. Because again, we see more of, now only rent they collect. Anything, go meet your landlord. Or no worry, just wait till we go talk to landlord. They don't take it very, very seriously. I'm very sure even if probably somebody saw the whole thing that happened and maybe beforehand and complain that this thing where they look at me like say they shake, go yes sir, no worry, go for today, we'll go talk to landlord. And at the end of the day, nothing is done. So let's both of us let me I think we should start with that. What exactly are the responsibilities of these caretakers and how do we start informing them? Because again, it feels like it's an informal sit. So probably a landlord just sees someone and says, this guy, the way they look at now, tenant, so maybe be the caretaker. Because I feel like that's what happens a whole lot.
So let me cut to the chase. The real caretakers are estate surveyors and valuers. Because
not oldest tenant.
What?
Because that's what
not
we
the oldest tenant.
But that's what
because they are
you.
professionals trained with the skills, all necessary skill sets to manage a property. And let me now tell you, we've seen cases where even lawyers manage property. It is very, very unprofessional. Lawyers are not caretakers. Lawyers are supposed to, their work is to, take care of the legal aspects of transactions.
And all,
There's a certain property on the island, a lot of them that lawyers are managing. They don't even go there to conduct routine inspection because they don't know the job. I know lawyers will not like this, but let's call a spade a spade.
But it's the truth now.
Now, let me also tell you, in cases where there are a lot of houses all over the island, even not just on the island, all over Nigeria, that do not even have caretakers. We call them property managers. So if you want to use the broader term, you can call them facility managers. So the work of a property manager or a caretaker, as a layman will call it, or a facility manager, is not just to collect rent. But what we have seen over time is the only time you see them show face is when they want to collect rent. And that's wrong. There's something we call routine inspection. This inspection is done quarterly, every 4 months. An inspection cuts across inspecting the entire house, making sure that everything that has to do with the house is still in a good shape, talking to the tenants who lives there, know their problems, know what the problems are, know the issues, not just to go to the house only when it's time to collect rent.
Right.
If a property manager who has proper sanity has conducted a routine inspection on that property that lady was living, that lady would not have died. They will have known that, oh, this, because that thing will have shown signs. I can tell you for free, that overhead tank will have shown sign of collapse. But because nobody is even conducting inspection, and the landlord is probably somewhere just expecting rent, he does not care whether the property is collapsing or not. And again, that's why a lot of these things, if we as people just talk, it won't get to see the light of the day. The government has to mandate property owners to make sure that they carry out routine repairs on their property annually. And that repair, maybe the government now needs to, come up with a body that will be inspecting properties to make sure that landlords don't just collect rent.
Right.
And I was on a radio program yesterday, we're talking about this issue of rent increment that has, messed up the whole of Nigeria. That's a problem too. The landlords will collect rent, they will increase their rents every year, and they will not spend a dime on the property that the money is coming from. Those are just critical issues that needs to be addressed. And I also think that the issue of substandard materials being used also is the problem.
Right.
So in the case where inflation has, affected a lot of people, affected businesses, affected cost of materials. So landlords that know that, oh, if I build this house now with 50 million, I will still get the same rent because of the location. So why will I go and spend 100 million because I want to use quality materials when I will still get the same rent? Because everywhere already is capped with certain rental values, certain market rate. There's no, even if you use gold to build the house, it might just be a slight difference in the rental value or sales value. So that's always an issue. So the government, LAPSCA, the agency of the government in charge of building control agency, they need to be up and doing properties. So when you give approvals for property, what do you approve? Do you just approve people to build? Do you even go back there to conduct a post-construction inspection after construction? What did the person conform with everything that was approved? The quality of integrity of the materials used? We have the Lagos State material testing laboratory, whatever. Are they really doing their job? Their job is to come to site, look at the quality of blocks you are using, look at the quality of cement you are using, look at the quality of iron you are using. That's their job. But are they really doing their job? So that's the problem in a country where a lot of people have, used to cutting corners. They used to cutting corners. So even we Nigerians too, we are at fault too.
Yeah.
In a place where the government will come and meet you, please go and do X, Y, and Z. But people will say, guy, it's too much. How can I pay all that just to be? In fact, in a country where people finish building houses before getting building approval. So what are you getting building approval for?
Oh
so
my God.
So what are you getting building approval for? Approval should come first.
Yeah, before
you even start building. But people will be because our documentation process is very, very rigorous.
Yeah.
If you are not careful, getting a building approval might take you up to 2 years. So please, do you want to continue waiting for that? So people will just apply for the building approval. A lot of these things people don't like to say it but we have to say it.
We need to start
saying it. So people will start building. Then while you are building, you have already applied for building approval. In fact, how many buildings in Lagos State even have building approvals? They are not up to 20%. Even the Lagos State governor was even saying last year that about 20%, only 20 or 30% of properties in Lagos State are registered. Out of the properties, only 20% are registered. Out of all the houses in Lagos State.
And we have new properties developed
coming up. So that's
day.
to tell you. So because the government needs to streamline and make these processes of getting your building approval, getting your titles easy for people. So because if you want to start building now, you're waiting to get approval. You might wait 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Meanwhile, inflation is setting in. The prices of building material is going. So people will finish. Most of the time is when you are finished building, the approval number will come out. So please, what have they approved? So these are critical issues. I just think that a lot of they need to be a seat at the table with policymakers, industry professionals. There needs to be a seat at the table where these matters are discussed holistically. I also continue to see all these cases happening, and at the end of the day, it's just going to be, moving around in circles.
Everything you've mentioned so far seems to put a lot of responsibility on the people building the houses,
Yes.
developing them,
Yes.
all the agencies that are required to ensure that things go smoothly.
Yes.
Now, I don't want to really depend on these people when it comes to my life and my safety.
Yeah.
Because eventually, even when we clamor about things like this, we still see this negligence occur. I'm not trying to paint a picture. Is there a way that tenants and people who move into houses can spot red flags or signals, danger signs to know that this place is not a place for me to move into? I know before, some people say that you should ask the neighborhood, ask other people that have lived in the house before about issues, but it seems as though it's probably issues of fraud that people are more concerned about, but danger zones are not things that we're privy to. So I want to ask you, are there like red flags or danger signs that people moving into this compound or buildings can take note? Taking, for example, that these builders and whatever, they're not really putting us at the forefront of safety. So what can we do ourselves?
So let me take you back a bit. Let me take you back a bit on the genesis of this entire problem.
Okay.
Nigeria, we have a deficit of about 18 million, 17 million. The figures are not completely, confirmed because we haven't done a census in a very long time. But we have a deficit that's clear. So in a country where we have over 200 million people, there's a housing deficit of about 20 million, 18 million, thereabouts. What housing deficit tells you is there's a housing shortage. That means 20 million people are homeless. That's what it tells you. So please, those 20 million people that are struggling to get a decent housing over their head, when they see these houses, it is always very, very difficult to take that time to do a due diligence on that property, because what they want to do is just, let me just get somewhere and just put my head, because right now I don't even have any choice. Do you know how many people are homeless on this island, in this Lekki particularly? Because everybody is trooping into the island and the houses are not there. That's why prices of houses are going up. So go to Lekki, you see now most of the duplexes have been converted to shared apartments because there's housing shortage. In a duplex in Lekki before now used to be 5 million, 6 million. Now, a duplex in Lekki Phase 1 is about 15, 20 million. So landlords who do not want to convert their houses now in Lekki Phase 1 will rent it as 15 million, 20 million. But the landlords who have the money for conversion will convert one duplex. They'll convert it to shared apartments. You have like 20 people living there, one room. So that's how, and so for those girls, they're desperate to just get somewhere to put their head because they cannot live under the bridge. So how do you really want them to see these red flags, because they're desperate? So a lot of people renting houses in Lagos now because of the population of people trooping into Lagos are just getting those houses out of desperation. It's not like they really, really like them. So to see the red flags, you'll be beclouded. You'll be beclouded because normal thing, if you want to rent a house, aside from doing your due diligence, who is the landlord? Who am I paying to? We are getting to a stage in Nigeria now where you also have to even take an engineer because that's where you want to be sleeping and putting your family. Exactly. Take an engineer to go and conduct an integrity test on that building.
But the landlord
entirely.
That.
No, the landlord. No, so if the landlord is not accepting to that, then there's no need. Don't even bother. There's no need to risk your life. Look at the lady who just passed on. Look at people who have a certain building collapse. Sometimes in Ikoyi, a few years ago, that even terminated the life of the developer himself because he was in the building when the entire thing came down. People have paid for their houses. If they have known at that point, they were still under construction. Right. If they have known, would they have paid? So those are issues. So either the landlord allows or not, do it. Tell the landlord, please, I hope you don't mind. I have to do this for my own safety. The building that collapsed in Abuja last year was designed for an hotel. But because the owner was not getting traffic, he converted it to self-contained rooms, to multiple self-contained rooms, and it collapsed. People died while in their sleep. So all these are issues. So either the landlord allows or not, please, as the landlord is giving you conditions, give him conditions too. Please, I want to bring my engineer to check the integrity of this house, check the integrity of the, quality of the, everything that has to just for you to be sure that you are living in somewhere that is peaceful. Even look at, so the issue of the scaffold that fell off, that's the last thing anybody would have checked. But it is obvious that we're getting to that point now where people need to check everything that needs to be checked. Yeah. Then when you're sure, then you can now pay. And say, okay, let me now pay. So that's how we can avoid these things drastically. But if the government do not take actions on these things, do not clamp down on quackery, do not clamp down on people building houses by themselves without employing services of professionals, we'll continue to see this thing. Excuse me.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank
I mean,
you.
this has been very
Yes,
insightful and a little revealing of the lapses that we have on both sides, the desperations of the individuals to get into the house, and then the negligence. But of
I know
course,
people that rent houses and they'll tell you, please, I want to pay today.
I
They
mean,
no due diligence. They just want to pay because
And
they've
the
been
landlords
homeless for
will
many
see-
years,
Yes.
the
and they're probably squatting somewhere, and this person is already showing them
Giving
signs
them
that
shege.
you have to go. So they want to just pay and just park in that same
the
day.
landlords will also see
Yes.
that desperation and will
They'll
just
see it.
do
I want the
anything
money.
because you
And
really
because of that
want it.
desperation, that's why landlords are even increasing rents, because they know that if you don't take it, somebody else will come and take it.
We need to take this short break. Now, when we come back, we have more questions for our special guest here. Please, let's stay with us. We'll be right back.
Nigeria, by extension Africa, battles a growing youthful population, and with little or no meaningful engagement, leaves a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say.
Welcome back, people. Today's conversation stems from a very tragic story, and honestly, having to discuss it again makes me feel really, really sad. The fact that a life was lost because of negligence. And, you know, our guest here has mentioned that this negligence is not just one-sided. Many times, we as tenants or, you know, proposed tenants need to also make due diligence to take our engineers to go to these sites and properties to make the due research before moving into these houses. But the big question now is, with the desperation that is everywhere, who would actually take this due diligence to ensure that the properties are safe and everything? So now I want to talk about another dynamics that we've seen. We've seen some Nigerians in diaspora becoming landlords. So many of them are living abroad and they leave properties in the hands of caretakers. So now that's a very dicey one, because many times maybe the integrity of these people is to ensure that nothing happens to people staying with me. But you cannot determine that if you are very far away. So I want to ask, based on your experiences so far, how can they ensure that, you know, these properties, there's proper oversight and accountability even when they are not around?
So I think the first thing you need to do as somebody who has relocated and you have a property here and you want to make sure that the property is in the hands of the right caretaker is to do a due diligence on the caretaker or the property manager you're handing over to. Not everybody can manage properties. I've said it earlier.
Yeah.
Lawyers can come for me, but they can't manage properties. I'm an excess surveyor and valuer. I can't do the job of a lawyer because it's not my forte, it's not my field. So as and the real estate sector is now becoming an all-comers affair. Everybody just feels I can manage a property, I can do real estate. Oh, it's not just to buy and sell, it's not just to manage it. No, I studied this in school for 5 years. So you want to tell me that what I studied in school for 5 years with my over 10 years of work experience, you want to know about that? It's not, so it takes, do your due diligence on the person you're handing over your investment to, because so for me, I didn't even call it property, I call it investment, because that property is an investment. You want to be getting your returns as I went due. So if you feel that the person has all the skill set, he has all the experience to do that, because what it takes to manage a property is not just to collect rent. Anybody who just collects rent and says he's managing a property is a rent collector. It's not a caretaker. It's just a rent collector. So because the property manager, you conduct routine inspection on the property quarterly. You give your landlord, your client, your principal a quarterly report. Oh, we have conducted an inspection. We noticed some cracked walls. We noticed some cracked windows. We noticed some faulty plumbing fittings. And we have also initiated, actions to fix them. And this is the bill. You pass it on to the landlord. If you say so, another issue is another issue is who even takes care of those repairs in the house. Some tenants don't even know that there are some responsibilities that are for the landlord. Some tenants also want to put all responsibilities on the landlord. So, so those issues are usually clearly stated in the contract, but people don't even read. It's a country where people don't read contracts. When you give people tenancy agreement, they just go to the last page and sign.
Because I want to move in
Don't
quickly
worry,
before this good deal expires.
Let me just move it, don't worry. So by the time there's now a default somewhere, he or she now goes back to the agreement and say, let me even read this thing. What is even... They're not telling that thing, that faulty door handle that got bad is your to fix it. And I'll be like, how should I fix it? The person will now refer that person to the agreement and I'll say, oh, I didn't even read it. So see, I think there's just so much. So I was in the UK last month, and I got an Airbnb apartment, and there was a fault in the apartment, a plumbing issue. Because I know that I was just there for like 2 weeks, so I called the facility manager, and they were very prompt to fix it. Because in the UK system is not so easy. For you to get a plumber, you can take 3 months to get an appointment. It's not the one that you just go by the roadside and call, Jam, you come and fix this thing for me. You can take 4 months.
Oh, wow.
I had the sink that my kitchen sink got blocked, and it was a problem to fix it. Eventually, I was practically washing my dishes from my bathtub because I could not fix it. I had to write an email to the facility manager. They gave me an appointment for 2 months. I'm like, how? So that's the way it works there. But in a country where we just go down the road and call Shegun, yeah, come and fix come and fix this stuff for me. And so who takes care of repairs? Those are the problems. So which repairs are tenant responsible for? Which repairs are landlord responsible for? So these things have to be clearly stated in contract. But like I said, people don't read contract. So all this. So it is very, very important for a property owner to conduct a due diligence on the person you are giving your property to, because whether you like it or not, if you give it to the wrong person, your return on investment is going to be very, very... In fact, you won't even get rent timely because you will not even know when to go after tenants who are owing. And it's not everything that has to go to court. A lot of times, these things, you can dialogue it with the tenant. Okay, you're owing, so what do you want to do? I advise you, if you know that your job, maybe you lost your job, and people say, because life happens. We've seen people who are working in top companies, and after a while, they lose their job, and to parents, it's not a problem. So you can... have a seat at the table with the person and say, please, I think I would advise you to look for a smaller apartment. It's easy because by the time you go to court, our court process in Nigeria, you can go years. You can go years and you're still there, and they'll keep adjourning. Although there's what they call ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolution. But how effective is that? I also have my reservations on that. How effective? Because in the case where you go to ADR and they invite the other party and it does not come, there's nothing binding. They cannot go and force the police to come to the mediation center. No. So that's also...
I think one of these days, we're going to have you on this show to talk about your reservations for the legal framework in the real estate industry.
So there's just so many flaws with our legal framework. That's the honest truth. A lot of times, it does not favor landlords. And it's totally bad because landlords who have invested... A lot of landlords are still paying loan for the property you are living in, and you are there, you don't want to pay rent. So how do you want him to service the loan he has gotten to build that house? So a lot of these things, and if you are in court, the tenant will remain in that house. He's not paying rent. 2, 3 years, he's still there. At the end of the day, they will go with that rent. If the court is not able to recover the money, because they call it men's profits. If you have taken the tenant to court, as a landlord, you don't have the right to request for money again. And tenants in Nigeria, once they know that they're in court, they know that you cannot do anything. They will be using, if you are now very unfortunate, to go and take somebody who knows the nooks and crannies of the court system, they'll keep adjourning that case. That case will not have head and tail. 2, 3 years, you are there. And at the end of the day, the landlord is the one losing because this man is not even able to service his mortgage anymore. So these are issues. So do a due diligence on your tenant, on the property manager. Don't give a property So in fact, that word caretaker for me, I even think is very derogatory. And I think it's for those Baba of those days that will carry file.
Oldest tenant in the house.
Those Baba of those days that will carry file and say, hey, Mr. They'll be knocking on doors. On those days, many of us grew up in tenement houses those days.
Yeah.
But now it has advanced to property managers or facility managers.
So that's the proper name to call them, property manager.
Yes, they have a proper record of all tenants, so they can give you, a very professional report and something that you'll be so impressed with.
All right. Before Godwiti asks her question, so we have a comment on our YouTube page, and it's a follow-up of what you said when you were saying that 5 million to get a duplex in Lekki now. The person here said...
Back then, now it's about 15, 20 million.
The person is saying it's about 25 to 35 million.
In fact, I agree with the person, 100%.
A very ridiculous amount.
Yeah, ridiculous,
All right, please, let's have your question.
Okay, so I wanted to ask a question concerning what you said, right? When you're talking about, setting responsibilities that the landlord, and I mean, that's for the landlord, that's for the tenant, is this something that is being, traced by, like, the landlord? Or is this something that is already, like, a standardized whatever? I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Yes.
Is this something that's already written, or is this something that the landlord has to now choose that, this one, now you go take them, this one, now you go take them? I want you just to explain that, because this country, I don't get it.
It's a generic terms in every contract.
Okay.
So, although some contracts might have some addendums here and there. So, in the case of a leaking roof, that's the work of a landlord, because it's structural repair.
Right.
A leaking roof, a cracked wall, is the work of the landlord to fix it. But in the case of a faulty door handle, that's why before anybody even moves into an apartment, there's something called, there's a checklist inventory taking of the apartment. So certain things, a faulty, so it states clearly, if the roof is leaking, a structure, anything structural. The structure, it means the roof, the walls, things that has to do with the main structure, the main physics of the building, But if there's a faulty, if there's a fault like, a faulty door handle, a broken light switch, that's the work as a tenant to fix it, because it was, and sometimes some tenancy or some contracts states that the landlord takes care of all repairs, and you must have paid for that.
Right.
In terms of in form of service charge.
Fees, service charge.
No, so some service charge are all encompassing. It covers any repair, even if you have the smallest damage. Some service charge covers all repairs. I have a property like that in Ikoyi. We do everything, even to change bulb, we change it for them. But some are very explicit. It's the tenant that will do it, all those small things. But when it comes to structural repairs, roof, doors, cracked walls, and plumbing work that are internally in the wall, so the landlord takes care of all that.
All right, let's talk a bit about reforms now. Because, again, just like you said, we should take out that, caregiver word and just caretaker rather, and put in something else. So let's talk about the reforms that should be put in place in order for this particular job or this role to be professional. Because, again, like we've said so many times on this table, the only thing that we see these people do is collecting rent. And there's that mindset of, and the oldest tenant, now gets the job. So if you just come new, now you see this guy, now we're old, now you not take the job.
And also, let's talk about becomes
exactly. So you see that there's a lot of things that we actually need to start working on. So let's talk about reforms that can be put in place in order for this role to be seen as a professional, a professional
so I
job.
think the Lagos State government particularly, I think for me, out of the 36 states, I think they are doing so much to have these bodies in place to check all these things. There's a body called Lagos State Real Estate Regulatory Authority, LASRERA. So I think that job is majorly to oversee activities within the real estate space. So in the case where you have a developer who has collected money from you and will tell you, no, when I finish building this house, I'll put swimming pool, I'll put elevator, and he refuses to do it, you go to such bodies, LASRERA, to report him. So you write LASRERA, they'll invite him over and they'll tell him to do the needful. So those are meaningful reforms that the Lagos government has put in place to checkmate all these things. So, I mean, to provide a safety net for the victims or the consumers of these services. And I think that that's very laudable. So I think that there could still be more. There could still be more. I mean, if such thing can be done by Lagos government, I think other states too can replicate it. But I think that generally, because Lagos government will not tell you who to appoint as your property manager, it's you that knows that the people who are licensed to manage properties legitimately, backed by law in Nigeria, are estate surveyors and valuers, and that's what you need to know as a person, because that's their forte, that's their core value. So if you now go ahead and give your property to to somebody who is not in that field, then that means you know that you are doing yourself an injustice or a disservice. So a lot of, but I think that we can do more in terms of implementing policies that will protect both the tenants and the landlord. So the law shouldn't be one-sided. It shouldn't favor tenants who are, so okay, a tenant who is living in my house will be more favored than me. How? Did I use stone to build the house or paper? I mean, so it has to be favor both parties. So that's why most time what people have tried to do these days is when they give you houses, they put a clause 1 year certain. A lot of people don't even read it. When they give you a house and they put 1 year certain, it means that after 1 year, you are only entitled to 7 days quick notice. And if you don't move out in 7 days, you go to court. There's nothing like 6 months quick notice. But a lot of people, even when you, that's why people don't read. That's why they say if you want to hide anything from Nigerians, put it in a book. They will not find it. They will not find it. Yes.
So now I did come across a comment this morning, and the person stated very clearly, a bit sarcastic, right?
Yeah.
And he mentioned that real estate luxury on the island is already looking like a scam. Because how would you say people are paying millions of naira? I mean, this 40 million to get a duplex, it's quite ridiculous. But there have like very recurring issues, especially with the water, for example. So this person was actually highlighting the terrible water that we have on the island here, and apologies to people living on the island. Because they are paying a whole lot of money to stay here. You left the mainland, yet nothing is being put into maintenance to ensuring that at least there's a good water treatment facility that can ensure that this water is better. Some of them resort to using pure water, sachet water as they call it, to brush their teeth because they cannot dare use such water. So I want to talk about how this whole financial planning works. This money that we pump into getting apartments on the island here is quite ridiculous. Let's be very honest. Let's probably now give it credence because you're staying in a very high-valued place. You should pay this amount of money. If that's the case, why don't we see certain things implemented? Certain things as little as getting good water in this place. What's your comment on that?
So quite unfortunately, I fall within that category of people who brushes them out their teeth with sachet water. Yes. I've had to do that this morning because, but you cannot. But that does not really determine the value of properties. So yes, we understand that the island is a peculiar area because of is a waterine area. So it's very, very difficult to get clean water. And
so even with the plenty money that is being pumped into the 50, the 100 million, nothing can be removed.
So I'm going somewhere. So when you put in place your reverse osmosis machine, you apply all your chemicals. The water, it doesn't make the water very usable for the body. You cannot drink. So it's just good for washing your clothes and all that. So, but again, that does not take out the value of properties on the island because what actually determines the value of any property. I saw a video of one guy that's all over the internet, one Scots guy that talks about, property is overpriced.
It's overpriced. He's speaking for us.
But but let me tell you, the development that is going on around the island is massive, and naturally in areas where developments are springing up here and there, property values go up, and you cannot really do anything about it. It's just natural. It's not natural. So, and what goes up in those properties that affect the value is the value of the land. A lot of times it's not the value. So if you want to build a 4-bedroom duplex now, you can build it for, let me say, 50 million naira in Lekki Phase 1. You can build the same 4-bedroom duplex with the same 50 million naira, for example, in Aja. And if in Aja now, they can sell that 4-bedroom duplex for 150 million. Meanwhile, in Lekki Phase 1 now, to buy a 4-bedroom duplex now, you have about 500 million. Right. So the difference in that value is the value of the land, not the value of the structure itself. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because, what determines value anywhere in the world, not just Nigeria, is location. So the things that you want to sell on the island where you are next door neighbor to all the who and who's, and you want the same value property, all the creme de la cremes, all the MD of banks, MD of oil and gas firms. So it's the environment. So the value naturally will be way different from that of the mainland. But we're not saying that some parts of the mainland are not also expensive. Some parts of the mainland are even more expensive than the island. Ikeja is very expensive. Yeah. Ogudu is very expensive. Some different areas are more expensive. Maryland, Shonibare, Magodo. So it's about choice. But again, if you are looking for areas, based on my own experience, I've been doing this work for 15 years. If you are looking for area where your rate of return, goes up almost immediately. Somebody bought a property in Nikate. I bought it for somebody like Last year, we bought it for, 2 years ago, we bought it for 70 million. After 4 months, we sold it for 150 million. Oof. So please, if you put that 170 million in the bank for 10 years, are you going to see 80 million difference? So the way, I don't know what is happening on the island, but is magic. It's magic. There's demand. Everybody
wants
to.
It's magic to you guys. I think it's magic to the people at the receiving end taking this money. And not to those buying it.
It is pure magic, and it's just simple. Developments coming up on the island are rapid. I think the government is really focusing so much on the island. They want to call it the new Lagos. If you go all the way to Epe, all the way to Ereko, there's a lot going on there. We have the deep sea port, we have a lot. So that's why property values are going up. And you cannot blame people who have bought when it was 2 naira. You can't blame them. They invested. They took a risk.
All right.
So that's why we always advise people to, no matter what you're doing, if you don't invest in real estate, you've not done anything.
Interesting. Now, to wrap up our conversation, so on the Punch, we have this story here that says Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, 700 buildings to be demolished instead of 1,500. I want to ask you, now, since we're talking property values, how do you think this will impact property values and development in those affected areas?
So I was in that axis yesterday, and I see that I must give kudos to the minister. I think the man is doing so much. The work is going on very, very fast. And I think that it will impact property values very positively. That's the truth. Because for everything we're doing in real estate, infrastructure is key. Yes, we have an infrastructure deficit of about, I think, 15–20% in Nigeria. But I mean, this is a good step in the right direction, because it would practically open up that entire stretch of the road. Property. I mean, look at what happened last week when they were working on Independence Bridge. Just Independence Bridge alone, look at the commotion that happened on the island. Right. Serious commotion. Everywhere was jam-packed, no movement. I was going to my radio program in VI. From Lekki Phase 1 to, from Lekki Phase 1 to Bishop Oluwole, I spent almost 9 hours. In fact, the program could not even hold. But when they open up roads like this, there'll be alternative roads for people to pass, to maneuver, not just everybody's following one way. There's no other alternative. So those are issues. So I think that it will impact the property values positively. But again, the properties that are to be demolished, I thought they were done demolishing. But if I thought they still have to demolish, well, the government, according to our Land Use Act of 1978, all lands is vested in the hands of the governor of the state or whatever. So they have the right, as long as you have your title, you get your compensation. They'll give you compensation, and that's why we always emphasize that people should register their titles. So you don't just so you own the property physically, you own the physical assets, but legally, title-wise, you don't own anything, because the government does not have any record of you in their file. So if anything like this happens, you won't get any refund. When
we talk about compensation, sorry, my love. When we talk about compensation, I want to get it right. Is it that there's like a certain amount that, is it from the landlord to the government that, oh, okay, this is the amount that I want you to pay me? Or is it the situation of they ask him, okay, how much did you spend during the time you built this, and they give him that? Like, I want to understand where exactly that compensation is. Because I want to believe that whatever that they're compensating, again, is compensation. It will not be the amount that the person was have spent. Again, look at the market right now, the price of things and all. So if you're demolishing somebody's house and you're compensating them, I want to have that.
So the government don't just wake up and give you X amount of money. Okay. So when the government needs your property for overriding public interest, that's what they call it. Oh, we want this property because we want to do road. They'll get valuers. They'll get people like us, estate valuers. Just go and tell us the value of what was demolished. Then when you give them the report, based on your report, the value that you ascribe to the government, or you propose to the government, that's what they use to pay compensation. And of course, as a valuer, you give them what is fair. So if a 4-bedroom duplex was demolished, we know what it takes. So what will it take that person to reinstate or to rebuild that property in a different location? What the government is paying compensation for is not the land.
No, of course,
the structure on it. It's the structure on it. So at the end of the day, they give you what they think that is fair. But in most cases, it's not always fair for
it cannot be fair. Let's be realistic.
We have to end this conversation.
It cannot be fair.
Because you're speaking from two angles. He is speaking as an ESV man who is going to go and inspect and see the value of that property. And you are speaking like a pained person whose house has been demolished.
I don't spend money in a guy.
Yes, but sometimes they just look at the entire process and give you what is fair. But again, it's better than giving you nothing.
Fair has different definitions. This is where we come to the end of today's conversation, and we've learned quite a number of things thanks to Mr. ESV Ewenla Mustapha.
Yes,
we hope to have you again on our show. We have to take a short break now, and when we come back, we're going to banter a little on the papers making waves this morning. So please stay with us. We'll be right back shortly.
Nigeria, by extension Africa, battles a growing youthful population and with little or no meaningful engagement leaves a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, I wonder where you've been for the past 40 minutes because we had a very wonderful conversation here. Although the context was a tragic story, but eventually we got to learn, how to balance things. And we're right back with how our show usually begins, and that's the newspaper banter this morning. Of course, I have the Guardian and the Tribune with me here. I'll start with the Guardian and then take God's Beauty International and then wrap it up with the Tribune very quickly. The major headline for The Guardian reads, CBN craves fiscal authority support, bets on stronger reserves and surplus. Dixon hinges Benue and Plateau killings on state failure. Dangote may sell petrol in Naira as federal government restores Naira for crude initiative. US-China trade war escalates as EU exerts pound of flesh. Abure and Usman Apapa tighten grip on LP leadership worsens party woes. EU advises Nigeria to elect leaders through ballots and not courts. Ishekiri vowed to shut more oil facilities over ward delineation in Warri State. And the story that I'd like to talk a little bit about is the newest updates with, the petrol, how that we're now, Dangote Refinery has agreed to sell in Naira rather than the dollar that was before. So there was this back and forth where I think for some time we couldn't, Dangote Refinery, I don't even know how the story went exactly, but now the conclusion is there's a better plan to now sell in Naira. And I think it's a good one because the reason why we even wanted this to happen was because it gives an opportunity for our Naira to be strengthened. It helps to stabilize petrol prices. It supports local refineries, reduces pressure on foreign reserves. And this is looking like a good leeway, even though I do not understand why there's a lot of back and forth with Dangote and NNPCL, because every time there's, with the federal government, NNPCL, Dangote, they want this, but then one party is not seeing the benefits and there's this, fall apart, and then eventually they come back to an agreement. So it's looking like right now there's an agreement because Dangote is agreeing to sell for the Naira, and I think this is going to be better for us. Hopefully things go as everything has been planned. And that's the story I have for the Guardian newspaper. Very quickly. Let's move internationally.
All right, straight into the New York Times newspaper. By the top right section, we have brushing of concerns. Trump pushes forward with his steep tariff. Left side column, we have Justice Dock, a showdown, skirting tough rulings on Trump's authority. Men center headline, we have a captive for decades, finds freedom in a fire. Mid-right column, IRS will give migrant data to ICE officials. Center image caption, which is the last headline on the newspaper, has reviving an extinct wolf breed that dominated the Stone Age. So I want to talk a bit about this headline that says, brushing off concerns, Trump pushes forward with his steep tariff. So honestly, just giving more updates again on what's going on with the trade war that is happening currently. So we have here President Donald Trump is proposing a universal 10% tariff on all imported goods and 60% tariff on Chinese products. You guys see what's going on with Trump, Abby? Like, you see how this guy, they cost Casablanca, because honestly, I don't know what's going on. Now we have, like, him imposing on, all product that's coming into, the United States by 10%. And of course, we already knew, we got that news since last week. But this one that, yesterday there was, back and forth both with China and the United States. Right now, only for us to say that the tariff, assuming it's even 20%, we go manage them. No wonder the Chinese are on his neck. Do you understand? Because literally, the percent that he even put on their goods is 60%. That's a lot now. He's doing to other countries 10%, and they are complaining. The UK is complaining, the Prime Minister is complaining, Russia is complaining. Only for him to now impose 60% to China's. I consider that to be very ridiculous, honestly. We don't know what.
Why is it giving personal? It's giving like maybe
it's giving personal, exactly.
Personal
it is not me, because the conversation between Trump and China, I feel like that's what is giving, very personal. Because tell me why you're inflicting 60% to their goods. I really don't know what you get from that, honestly. It's giving all shades of wrong, honestly speaking. Then there's this other news here that I see, the headline rather. I really love it so much. And this one says, Justice dog a showdown. It's getting tough and reliant on Trump's authority. So if you check checking through the details of this, it says the United States Supreme Court, led by Chief Justice John Roberts, is consistently avoiding making direct rulings on controversial issues related to President Donald Trump's use of executive power. Instead of taking a clear stance, the court is issuing narrow technical decisions. This cautious approach allows the court to sidestep defining the limit of presidential authority, especially regarding significant Trump-era actions. Again, we're having a conversation about the power of the executive, that's the president. And the last time we had a conversation about this, it was more like, the United States judicial system is looking forward to, breaking down certain powers that, the executive have. And I consider that to be like a good one, because for every time I would always think about it, because it's a problem that we have even here in Nigeria, right? But with what I'm seeing on the newspaper, it's not looking like they even have their acts together. It's not looking like the United States judiciary body have their act together. Because tell me why a Chief Justice is a bit scared of the kind of release that he wants to pass to Trump. I'm confused. That's the reason why there's check and balance, right? I consider each of those arms of government to have equal powers, because they really have equal powers. We know that they're limited to certain things, which of course you cannot do a certain thing without the aid of another person. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. Without the aid of the other arm of government rather. So now that you have the Chief Justice scared of passing a certain rule to the executive, then what exactly are we even talking about? You see, you just take me back to the conversation about the executive arm. That's from the government, right? The president rather. It has a lot of power, and we need to start working on it, honestly speaking. And like I said, I thought that the judiciary arm in the United States have their things all figured out, but it's looking like they don't, because I don't know why the Chief Justice is scared and is avoiding, passing out certain rules or certain, rulings to something that involve, Trump and the controversies that just surrounds Trump. I consider that to be very, very woke, honestly. And I just hope that one day we'll get to that point where certain rules are being placed down, or certain policies are being placed down, and we get to that point where we see the powers of the president, and we're able to cut down. Because honestly, it's not. I don't know what this newspaper is. This newspaper is not giving me good news at all. Like we have Trump, and Trump is just everywhere. Honestly, you see people that voted him in. We see the chaos that is discussing.
Why look American to you?
I don't understand.
So how did you say is this you people that voted?
You see, are you not part of those persons that give the credit that he would do well?
Newspaper.
This babe, you guys see, right?
I'll just run through some of the headlines. IBA's under fire over appointment of LG administrators in Rivers. Trump announces 90-day pause on tariff except for China. So I think there's something personal there. We need to investigate what's really happening with the United States and China. Yeah. It says Nigeria posts $6.83 billion balance of payments surplus in 2024, says CBN. And then another comment from an ex-president. It says leadership and opportunity to serve and not self-enrich. Buhari tells APC governors. This is a very, very, very motivational quote From the ex-president, former president Muhammad Buhari, who has then come out to speak to the APC governors that leadership is an opportunity to serve and not self-enrich. Like we've said on this table,
So
it feels different when you're on the other side of the table after you have, served.
Exactly. So him, you have served.
Yeah, after you have served and not self-enriched, when you're out, you cannot tell people who are self-enriching or allegedly that it's about service. And I hope that they take, note to this particular motivational quote that has been given. And again, to wrap up the story, I think I'm more excited about the whole crude for Naira story from the Dangote refinery, because I feel like this would help petrol become cheaper. I just hope that whatever structures we put in place should be followed through and through. All right, this is where we come to the end of today's conversation. Tomorrow is another day for another hot topic on the Ways Breakfast Show with your favorite girls again. Of course, ensure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, call us, be part of our conversation, and see you tomorrow by 8 a.m. Bye.
Hello, you. Yes, you. This is Usayome Sale from Ways Prime Time. Now, we appreciate your continued support for watching our content, following us across all our social media. But we've noticed, for those of you watching us on YouTube, 88.5% of you who watch our content aren't subscribed to our channel. Why? Now, if you are enjoying our content, you enjoy our shows, and you want to stay updated on all things Ways, it's time to hit that subscribe button below. Now, subscribing isn't just for you. It's for the growth of our channel. It helps us get bigger and better. With your support, we can continue to bring even more intriguing and exciting content. How about you subscribing right now and being a part of our community?